Well, today we begin 5 days of non-stop broadcasting from New York and Washington, D.C. This is a very important visit, and we'll be bringing it live with, of course, our political editor Navika Kumar, who's been camping in New York for the last few days. Navika, good to see you here.
Good to see you, Arnab, here on Ground Zero in New York, where all the news will be happening. Modi is arriving.
Yes.
There's so much expectation in the air. The Indian-American community is completely looking forward to this event and to Modi making a statement. And, of course, the Central Park event, where Modi, the event manager, has really got a good event going with the Global Citizen Workshop here. And we met all of these guys. Everybody's talking about the brand Modi arriving in New York and going from here to Washington.
Well, you know what my concern is, Navika, is that all of this sometimes takes away from the hard stuff. Maruf. You know, and Maruf is also our strategic affairs editor and expert, is with us today. And Maruf, you know, what my concern is, this whole razzmatazz, the Madison Square event, takes away from the hard strategic stuff. What, in your view, are you looking forward to, especially in the New York leg, Maruf?
Well, on the first, I must compliment you in particular and the channel in general to actually shift the Ground Zero to New York, where in the United States, the next 1 week will be very crucial in defining India's strategic partnership with the most important strategic player in world affairs.
Yes.
And to that extent, I think Mr. Modi's visit and the detailed coverage that our channel is going to bring across to Indian viewers is going to be path-breaking in terms of trying to understand how India would fit into the larger strategic picture that the United States hopes to evolve for world politics.
Right.
And within that, I think India needs to also get the United States to negotiate with India on its own terms as a strategic partner and not as a junior ally.
Done so. You feel so far we haven't done so. We had the promise to do so. Do you think Modi will make such a big quantum shift on day one, day two, or on his first trip? Or is it going to be just one small step towards expanding the relationship? For example,
I think there are a lot of possible deliverables on the table. One is how India now takes forward the initiative that the Americans had put into place about the Indo-US nuclear arrangement.
Right.
How India takes forward America's long-standing demand to be a partner in India's defense production platform, which India wants to create long-term for its own indigenization with transfer of high-tech technology from the United States if the US is willing to give. And most importantly, India defining how India would get the US to support India's role in South Asia, especially in the aftermath of America's withdrawal from Afghanistan.
That's not just it, Arnab. The other issue also on the table here is that everybody looks at whether on the sidelines of UNGA there will be Nawaz Sharif, Modi talks or not.
I think it's a given.
That's a given. It's not happening. But India is looking at this opportunity to go beyond that. They're looking at a 1-year deadline now to bring a paper at the UNGA to talk about reforms in the Security Council, the expansion of the Security Council. They're already now
Easier said than done.
Easier said than done. 129 votes. But this is the first time we've heard them say this in so many words, that 129 votes is what they need. They're working towards it. They're already in their 115, 118 category of countries, who've virtually come behind them. And India is working towards them. If you see Foreign Minister Sushma Swaraj, she's been meeting all and sundry nations, not for UNGA, not for Indo-Pakistan talks, not for Southeast Asia and what's happening, but really looking at getting support from these countries for that UNGA.
I think that actually defines why we have been calling, our entire coverage India's power push. Because I completely agree with you. Just to complement what both of you said, my own view is that we probably will be approaching both our coverage, and I think the government of India will look upon taking maximum mileage out of the opportunity in history which this moment presents itself before us. If you looked at Obama's speech at the UNGA, his entire focus was on creating a global coalition on terror. Now, there's a great opportunity. We know that America is withdrawing out of Afghanistan by 2016. The region becomes fragile. Pakistan's equation with America is under doubt. Some people say it's dysfunctional, Maruf. But here, therefore, is an opportunity for India to emerge with a stronger economic and perhaps a military partnership with the United States, but on its terms, and not just be a participant without extracting something from the Americans in terms of concrete assurances. My question to you, Maruf, is what are those concrete assurances which we can get? Because we have heard a lot, we got nothing. In 2010, Obama came on the floor of our parliament. He said, we are going to help you in the fight against terrorism and ensure that it doesn't emanate from Pakistani soil. 4 years hence, we got nothing. As far as the UN Security Council seat is concerned, it's one of those big diplomatic carrots, Navika, which are presented. You and I know that. Are we in a position to do that? Or is this US visit all about the razzmatazz, about Modi's arrival, about how he's being welcomed by the NRI community, which is a given. I mean, knowing his NRI support base, there's nothing surprising about it. You feel the focus is there on the hard talk, or do you think from the sense you get on the ground, it's shifted a little away from
Well, it's got to be both. It has to be a
because the American government is distracted on its own.
Well,
it
has to be. I mean, we're not talking of just the Obama administration. We're talking of United States and India in the coming century. It has to be both ways, hard talk plus give and take.
Right.
But most importantly, we've got to understand that America has been too used to dealing with countries in the world on its own terms.
Exactly.
And America must be made to understand that here is a huge opportunity cost that is involved for America if it continues to ignore India purely to service its own basic agenda, which is that as long as we are in Afghanistan, we have to suffer Pakistan and all their terror-related relationships because we can't abandon Pakistan because that's a route into Afghanistan. But I think that has to change. India has to let America know that, listen, you've got to put your mouth where your vote is. And you're not going to just turn around and tell us that we will support you when there is reform in the UN Security Council. India's time, to my mind, came 10 years ago. We haven't pushed hard enough. We have to tell the world that, listen, you want more Indian participation in world affairs. You have to give India a bigger role. We can't have the same vote as Maldives and Seychelles and all these other countries and be yet another votary in the UN General Assembly. And whatever Pakistan and China's agendas to stall India's efforts, India must now bulldoze its way onto the high table.
And I'd like to say this, that as we are bringing this coverage to you, we are going to have a series of roundtables and conversations. We had a few earlier this morning, and the sense I got, some of the Pakistani journalists who I spoke to said, their information is that Nawaz Sharif may go soft on Kashmir. Now, I said I'm the cynic in the room. I don't agree with that view. I think Nawaz Sharif will play to a domestic gallery, including but not excluding Imran Khan. Question is, Navika, if that is a given, how will Modi deal with it? Because if Modi does not respond a day later, some people will say it's an opportunity lost. If he responds, then it will get Kashmir back to the level of a global squabble.
Well, India is very clear. The conversations we've been having with people in the External Affairs Ministry and people who've been talking and advising Narendra Modi in the run-up to this big meeting here, all of them say that India's got a stock reply to this one. They say that as per the Shimla agreement, Kashmir is a bilateral issue. It's going to stay there.
Because we saw Sartaj Aziz, and I don't know how you read it, but when Sartaj Aziz says that, I don't know, what was the exact word which he used there?
He says it is an overreaction. Calling off of the talks was an overreaction because Pakistan has been in talks with the Hurriyat for years.
Was that deliberate provocation?
It is, because that's the only way Pakistan is going to be able to grab headlines while their Prime Minister is here. And they are addressing a constituency back home in Pakistan, strife-torn Pakistan. So Nawaz Sharif has to actually establish himself and prove himself more on ground in Pakistan than he has here, because here in President Obama's speech, a warning to the Islamic world was sent out in no uncertain terms, and Pakistan is included in that Islamic world.
It was not named
it wasn't named separately, but certainly part of the Islamic world, and the warning was out there very much for
I'd also like to add, Navika, that, you know, Nawaz Sharif would lose another opportunity to address the world by just addressing a constituency in Pakistan, because there are no other takers in the world today out of the 194 odd countries that make up the UN except Pakistan that wants to do chest beating on Kashmir. What Pakistan needs to understand that there is a change of guard in Delhi, there is a change of contours, and they have to learn to
got
turn.
The message already, haven't they?
Well, Nawaz Sharif and his team is trying to use the same blackmail tactics, both diplomatically and militarily, to try and get India back onto the negotiating table and use it as a political one-upmanship factor.
But having said that,
India is now, I think Mr. Modi's government has made it clear that the old rules of engagement don't apply.
Well, having said that, yes, Navika, you want...
Another part that will be very important in this visit is Modi's engagement with business leaders. He's meeting business leaders from Boeing, from GE, from the big companies of America, and the fact that he actually unveiled Make in India yesterday before he took the flight for America is a message that he is committed to bringing more investment.
On that, I'd like to say
how much more work remains to be done in this?
But there is that, the elephant in the room in that case is actually whether it's all right to give a slogan, make in India, but you have to follow it up with the right steps to woo those investors. And from the information that I get, all of these people, the top investing community, which is going to be meeting Modi in New York, after he delivers his speech at the UNG, are going to be asking him fairly straight questions. What are you doing on your tax policies, for example?
Tax terrorism is what they call it.
Is the tax terrorism actually ending? So I think Modi, I presume, would have some straight answers to them. But let it be said that as of now from New York, I'd like to wrap up by saying this, that from Navika, me and Maruf, the broad focus for the first 24 to 48 hours is going to be what Nawaz Sharif says and Modi's speech at the UNGA. One thing is very clear. The hyphenated relationship is something, for years we spoke about the India-Pakistan relationship being hyphenated. That is a thing of the past because Nawaz Sharif, after New York, takes a flight straight back to Islamabad, and it is only Modi who's having those detailed conversations in Washington. Well, that's it for now. Over the next few days, Navika, me and Maruf will be bringing you many, many more updates here from New York.